Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, coming up in the next 30 minutes. Iran says it wouldn't need to retaliate if United Nations had condemned strike on Damascus. Asserts it won't be hasty. US speaks to Turkey, China, Saudi Arabia on avoiding escalation in West Asia. Israel says prepared and on high alert. Major Russian airstrikes destroy Ukraine's energy system. Putin says had to attack in response to Kyiv strikes. IAEA chief says Zaporizhzhia attack risk shift in Ukraine conflict. And O.J. Simpson, the controversial American sports figure, dies of cancer at 76. Football star was acquitted of killing his former wife and a friend in a 1995 case dubbed as trial of the century. And Russia and Kazakhstan continue to battle record floods as rivers rise further, while wildfires create havoc across Guatemala. In India, Prime Minister reviews preparedness for heatwave-related situation. And on to the details now. As tensions in West Asia escalates, Tehran's envoy to the UN claims that if the UN Security Council had denounced the attack, the imperative for Iran to retaliate for it on its diplomatic compound in Damascus may have been averted. Though Iran has signaled to Washington that it will not act impulsively in response to Israel's attack on its Syrian embassy, Iran will instead attempt to prevent a significant escalation as Tehran presses demands, including a Gaza truce. Reportedly, Iran's message to Washington was conveyed by Iranian foreign minister during a visit on Sunday to the Gulf Arab state of Oman, which has often acted as an intermediary between Tehran and Washington. The diplomatic messaging points to a cautious approach by Iran as it weighs how to respond to the April 1st attack in a way that deters Israel from further such actions, but avoids a military escalation that could suck in the United States. Meanwhile, Israel said it has been bracing for possible Iranian retaliation for the killing of a senior general and 6 other Iranian officers in an airstrike in Damascus on the 1st of April.
We are prepared both defensively and offensively in a variety of capacities of the army. An attack from Iran's territory will be solid proof of Iran's intention to escalate in the Middle East and stop hiding behind its proxies.
Well, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has also engaged in talks with his Turkish, Chinese and Saudi Arabian counterparts amid concerns that Iran will strike Israel in retaliation for a strike in Damascus. During the talks, the U.S. has expressed its concern towards the tensions in West Asia and made clear that escalation in the region is not in anyone's interest.
I don't have any calls to announce, but we have been engaged in a series of contacts, not just at his level, but at other levels too, to talk to foreign counterparts to send this very clear message to Iran that they should not escalate this conflict. We continue to be concerned about the risk of escalation in the Middle East, something we have been working to mitigate and contain since the attacks of October 7th, and specifically about the threats made in recent days by Iran against the state of Israel and the Israeli people.
While White House affirmed the U.S. ironclad commitment to Israel's security and asserted that U.S. was not involved in the Damascus strike.
We've been very clear about that. And we've been very clear that to Iran that we're not involved in the Damascus strike, right? We've been also very clear. I'm not going to get into public back and forth. We communicated to Iran that the U.S. had no involvement in the strike.
Well, killing of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh's sons on Wednesday has risked complicating efforts to free hostages still in Gaza, although Hamas clarified that they keep interest of the Palestinian people ahead of everything. Meanwhile, Israel is adding new crossing points to boost the delivery of aid brought in overland from Jordan to Israel's east. Alex Cardier tells us more from Tel Aviv.
Well, that strike, which killed 3 sons of Ismail Haniyeh, the Hamas political leader, was decided on without consulting the Prime Minister, the Defense Minister, or senior IDF commanders. In fact, the decision was to strike was made on the ground level by field commanders. We understand they saw it as a tactical decision based on intelligence by Shin Bet, the security agency. They say the 3 men were going to conduct acts of terror in central Gaza. No details on what those acts would have been. No response on the allegations that 4 of Ismail Haniyeh's grandchildren were also killed in the strike. And now Ismail Haniyeh has said that Israel is delusional if it thinks that targeting his sons will soften Hamas's position in those tense and ongoing ceasefire negotiations. Clearly still more work to be done there to reach a deal, but also more work to be done on the humanitarian front. The UN Security Council acknowledging that Israel has made some efforts when it comes to allowing more aid into the Gaza Strip, but saying a lot more still needs to be done. We know from Prime Minister Netanyahu, he said the port of Ashdod would be open to humanitarian supplies and the Erez checkpoint in the north of the Gaza Strip would also be opened. We don't know yet if either of those things have happened. We've seen an increase in the number of trucks going in, but aid agencies say those trucks aren't full, and therefore the amount of aid and food and medical supplies that are needed in Gaza still not getting to those who so desperately need it. So some progress on that aid situation, but not nearly enough. Some movement on the ceasefire talks, but no deal yet. Alex Kadia in Tel Aviv, reporting for DD India.
And updates now on Russia-Ukraine conflict. Russian missiles and drones destroyed a large electricity plant near Kyiv and hit power facilities in several regions of Ukraine on Thursday. A senior official at the company said the major attack completely destroyed the Triple-Skar coal-powered thermal power plant near the capital. The substations and power generating facilities had been damaged in attacks on the regions of Odessa, Kharkiv, Zaporizhia, Lviv and Kyiv. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin said Russia had been obliged to launch strikes in response to Kyiv's attacks on Russian targets.
Unfortunately, we observed a series of strikes on our energy sites recently and were obliged to respond. I want to emphasize that, even for humanitarian reasons, we did not carry out any strikes in winter. What I mean is that we didn't want to leave social institutions without power, hospitals and the like. But after a series of attacks on our power facilities, we had to respond.
And UN nuclear watchdog chief Rafael Grossi said the most recent attacks have shifted us into an acutely consequential juncture, adding that he wanted to ensure these reckless attacks do not mark the beginning of a new and gravely dangerous front of the war.
On Sunday, direct attacks against the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant marked a major escalation of the nuclear safety and security dangers in Ukraine, significantly increasing the risk of a nuclear accident. The most recent attacks, however, are a clear violation of the principles and have shifted us into an acutely consequential juncture in this war.
Well, Russia and Kazakhstan continue to battle record floods as rivers rise further. People across the Russian cities of Orenburg, Kurgan and Tyumen battle as water levels rise in the Ural and Tobol rivers. President Putin held a meeting with ministers and governors of the affected region. Similar scenes are being witnessed across northern Kazakhstan. A state of emergency remained in effect in 8 affected regions of the country. Emergency workers have so far removed 8.8 million cubic meters of water from flooded areas. The deluge of melt water has forced over 120,000 people from their homes in Russia's Ural Mountains, Siberia and Kazakhstan. Also, wildfires have ravaged parts of Villanueva in Guatemala, prompting the government to declare a natural disaster. According to reports, dozens of fires are burning in forest areas and a major landfill site in the Villanueva areas. Guatemala officials report over 200 people have sought medical attention after exposure to smoke from the burning landfill. President Bernardo Arevalo has said the vast majority of the fires are man-made. Well, in Florida, the storms brought down more than 10 inches of rain in parts of Tallahassee, prompting flash floods on roadways and the rescue of stranded people. Eyewitnesses' video showed a road washed out after two fierce storms hit Tallahassee, Florida on Wednesday and Thursday. Some districts in the affected areas directed to close shawls and urged people to avoid flooded roads. And India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired a meeting to review preparedness for the ensuing heat wave season. Prime Minister was briefed about the temperature outlook for the period from April to June 2024, including the forecast for the upcoming hot weather season, the likelihood of above normal temperature over most parts of the country, especially with high probability over central India and western peninsula India. Preparedness in the health sector was also reviewed. Prime Minister stressed upon the whole-of-government approach. He said that all arms of the government at central, state and district levels, our various ministers, need to work on this in synergy. Prime Minister also stressed upon awareness creation along with adequate preparation in hospitals. He also highlighted the need for quick detection and putting out forest fires. And news from around the world now. 3 shipwrecked men were rescued from a remote Micronesia island after they encountered problems with their boat and were stranded on the western Pacific island for over a week. The men were reported missing since 31st of March after launching a coordinated rescue effort involving both the U.S. Coast Guard and the Navy. 3 stranded boaters were rescued. Aviation company Boeing says that the embattled airplane manufacturer is focusing on rebuilding trust after a series of safety incidents have shaken trust of the company and led CEO Dave Calhoun to announce that he would step down by year-end. The executive said that Boeing worked closely with the airline and Australian government after a flight suffered a sudden mid-air dive and injured 50 people. Scientists are testing a robot named Spirit to walk on the moon, preparing the robot to work and monitor the extreme conditions of the moon and Mars for future missions to space. The idea is to teach Spirit how to cope with difficult and changing terrains in the same way humans do, such as walking from hard to rocky surfaces to soft ground like snow or sand. Exhibition opens in Turkmenistan, showcasing artistry that highlights its legacy of culture. The exhibition includes more than 250 art pieces, including paintings, sculptures, jewelry and many more. These works of art poetically glorify the beauty of our happy times, our traditions associated with the arrival of the spring holidays. And still to come on this edition of DD India Live. In a bid to provide a boost to economic growth in Peru, Congress approved a controversial proposal that will allow retirees to tap savings accounts. Election fever grips India, campaigning in full swing across the country. Notification for third phase to begin today. And in tennis, Indian women's tennis team beat Chinese Taipei 2-1 in its third Billie Jean King Cup 2024 Group 1 tie on Thursday. We'll tell you more ahead.
Regional parties call the shots in the Northeast. Will local issues play high over national issues? What are the issues that matter in Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura and Manipur? On the Great Indian Election on Friday at 8:30 p.m. IST and 1500 hours GMT, only on DD India.
As India decides in the world's largest election,
we help you feel the pulse of the nation.
I am Sakal Bhatt.
I am Shubhendu Ghosh.
This election season, join us on a journey of India.
Discover the colors of democracy. Watch Poll Pulse on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Vipakshi Khuran, and moving on, Peru's Congress approved a controversial proposal that will allow retirees to tap savings accounts that the country's financial regulator estimated could force pension fund administrators to sell some $7 billion in assets. The bill was passed with 96 votes in favor, 5 against and 5 abstentions. Over the past 4 years, lawmakers have approved 6 previous pension fund withdrawals worth somewhat $24 billion in a bid to provide a boost to cash-strapped savers at a time of sluggish economic growth in Peru, once one of South America's star performers. Retirees with pension funds in Peru represent a minority. However, as about 7 out of 10 workers in the country are employed in the informal economy and do not contribute to retirement accounts, pension fund administrators nonetheless invest around 60% of the savings they manage in local assets, mostly in government bonds. Cases and deaths from the dengue epidemic in Peru have more than tripled in 2024. The number of deaths from dengue fever and suspected cases rose to 117 on the 13th week this year. The authorities have approved an emergency decree with extraordinary economic measures to strengthen the strategy against the epidemic. The figures in Peru are alarming because the ability of transmitting mosquitoes rose in reaching regions where dengue has not been detected before. And the controversial American sports figure O.J. Simpson has died of cancer at the age of 76. Simpson rose to fame on a football field and remained in the spotlight when he was accused of murdering his ex-wife and another man in 1994. Ira Spitzer reports from Simpson's hometown of San Francisco.
O.J. Simpson had a standout career as a running back in the National Football League from 1969 to 1979, followed by a successful foray into acting. However, he is best known for accusations that he stabbed and killed his ex-wife Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ron Goldman in 1994 at her Los Angeles home. After Simpson was charged with the murders, he led police on a long, low-speed car chase around L.A. in a vehicle driven by his friend that was watched on TV by tens of millions of people at the time. Simpson was acquitted of the murder charges in a blockbuster televised criminal trial the next year. The differing reactions to the verdict between black and white Americans at the time exposed racial fault lines in American society. The trial took place in L.A. with a majority black jury just a few years after white police officers were found not guilty in the beating of black man Rodney King, which led to the L.A. riots. Simpson was, however, found liable for the wrongful deaths of his ex-wife and Ron Goldman in a civil trial just a few years later. Ultimately, Simpson would serve almost 9 years in prison after he was convicted of armed robbery in a separate incident in Las Vegas in the early 2000s. Reporting in San Francisco, Ira Spitzer for DD India.
And now let's get to the latest on the world's largest democratic election in India. Well, election season is at its peak in India, with parties organizing multiple public meetings as the first phase of voting is slated for the 19th of this month. In order to garner support for the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party, Prime Minister Narendra Modi to hold rallies in Jammu and Kashmir's Udhampur and Rajasthan's Barmer and Dausa. With the Lok Sabha elections nearing, political parties are ramping up their efforts to woo voters, with leaders actively engaging with the public to garner support. Senior BJP leader and Union Home Minister Amit Shah will hold rally in Uttar Pradesh's Moradabad, while Defence Minister Rajnath Singh to hold rallies in Uttarakhand's Garhwal and Almora. Also, Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister and senior BJP leader Yogi Adityanath is busy campaigning with full vigour. On Friday, the minister will address public rallies in Meerut and Saharanpur to support various BJP candidates for the upcoming general election. Also, notification for the election process on 94 seats in the third phase will be released on Friday. Voting in the third phase will be held on the 7th of May. In the third phase, voting will be held for 94 parliamentary constituencies in 12 states and union territories. Starting from today, the last day for filing nomination for the third phase of election is April 19th. The seats for which voting is to be held in the third phase including Assam, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Goa, Gujarat, Jammu and Kashmir and others. Also, there will be a separate notification for the adjourned poll in Madhya Pradesh's Betul. Well, Meghalaya is a northeastern state of India. Its capital is Shillong. The word Megha means clouds and Alaya means abode. In Sanskrit, hence the meaning of Meghalaya is the abode of clouds. It was formed from 2 districts of Assam in 1972, and before that, Meghalaya was considered a part of Assam. More than 80% of the state's population depends on agriculture for their living. And let us now deep dive into why Meghalaya matters as India decides in 2024. Known as the abode of clouds, the northeastern Indian state of Meghalaya is renowned for its natural beauty. Spread over an area of over 22,000 square kilometers, the state, which shares its borders with the hill state of Assam in the north and India's neighbor Bangladesh in the south, has over 70% of the state covered by forest. The state is also home to one of the world's wettest places, Mawsyn Ram. Its capital, Shillong, which was called the Scotland of East by the British, is a popular hill station. Meghalaya's pristine landscape attracts tourists from all over India. The state's population mainly comprises 3 tribes, the Geros, Khasis and Jantia. Meghalaya hosts some of the most marvelous wonders of nature, including the living root bridges, which are formed of living plant roots. It is also home to some of the most rare orchids. In the 2024 general elections, the state, which has 2 Lok Sabha lower house seats in the Indian Parliament, is going to polls in a single phase on April 19th. Meghalaya has over 2 million voters, out of which over 1 million are men, over 1.1 million are women, and 3 belong to the third gender. Coming to the state's current political scenario, it is governed by the National People's Party with the support of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Other parties in the political arena are the Indian National Congress, the United Democratic Party, and the Trinamool Congress. Looking back at the 2019 election results in Meghalaya, of the total 2 seats, the NPP and the Congress bagged 1 seat each. Now, though just 2 seats, Meghalaya is set to see an interesting multi-cornered fight, and it may not be just a straight fight between the BJP and Congress-backed alliances. With 10 candidates contesting and small local players eyeing the political pie, a lot is at stake for all the parties in the fray. And now let's take a look at other stories making news today. The Indian Army conducted a training exercise of anti-tank guided missile firing at a super high altitude area in Sikkim. Missile firing detachments from mechanized and infantry units of the entire Eastern Command participated in the training exercise. The training exercise encompassed comprehensive continuity training and live firing from different platforms on moving as well as static targets depicting battlefield conditions. India celebrates 4th day of Navratri. The temples recited prayers to Goddess Durga, while a large number of devotees gather to offer prayers and take part in the morning prayer to commence the 4th day of the 9-day Hindu festival of Navratri. District Magistrate reached Indian Holy Badrinath Dham temple and inspected the preparations and construction works of Char Dham Yatra to ensure everything is in order for such significant events. Streamlining travel arrangements will certainly help a smooth and safe pilgrimage experience for everyone. In India's Punj, devotees participated in the occasion of the 325th year celebration of the Khalsa Panth Sirgana Divas, also known as Baisakhi. The history of Baisakhi goes back to the celebration in 1699 when Guru Gobind Singh, the 10th Guru, called his fellow men for a gathering to infuse courage among them to stand against tyranny and oppression. And news from the world of sports. The Indian women's tennis team beat Chinese Taipei 2-1 in its third Billie Jean King Cup 2024 Asia-Oceania Group 1 tie in Changsha, China on Thursday. Rutuja Bhosle won the singles double, while the duo of Pratna Thombare and Ankita Raina prevailed in the doubles contest. India is currently placed third in Pool A following 2 wins and a loss in 3 outings. Meanwhile, China and South Korea are first and second after winning all their 3 matches so far. The top 2 teams in the 6-team Asia-Oceania Group 1 competition will win promotion to the playoffs, while the bottom 2 teams will be relegated to Group 2 in 2025. India will next take on Korea on Saturday. And that's all for this edition of DD India Live. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.